Good evening, Keeps Up the Cash. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here. And before we get too far and introduce, we have a brand new intro video made by Slotitup503, and we're going to hit our brand new intro. So sit back, enjoy the new intro. All right. Thank you very much, Jason, for updating the intro and including the new family of suspects.
So let's see if I can do this right, because I'm not very good at these cool
heart.
hip things. I feel so loved.
So joining us tonight, we have Jason, Slotitup503.
What's up?
We have Rob, Fat Stacks of Comics. And our guest of the hour, none other than Jen from Comics Will Break Your Heart. Welcome to the show, Jen. Again,
yeah. We got to hang out the last time with Carlin Appy of Duplicant.
Right, and yeah. I don't know about you. I'm waiting for issue 5 to come out.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a Kickstarter right now for it.
I got the notification in my previews that it'll be at my comic shop. Yes, I was like, sweet. But as we like to do, I'm going to say a quick hi to the audience, and then I'm going to have you introduce yourself for anyone that may not be familiar with you and your channel and give them a breakdown. But first, Pocan Joe, how you doing? Epic Prince, Brian from LCS, Chop and Drop, how you doing, sir? Jerry the Jitterbug, how are you? Comic Journey, thank you for joining us. Also, Jen, give us a quick breakdown. Let us know what you do and what your channel's about.
Yeah, so the channel that I do, Comics Will Break Your Heart, is the channel. If you don't know, the phrase "Comics Will Break Your Heart" comes from Jack Kirby, and a lot of it was built on like his love for the comic book industry, but not necessarily getting the I don't want to say the fame that he deserved. I don't think he got the fame that he deserved. So a lot of what I do is I like to talk about the books that are coming out. I like to talk about creators. My friend Mars and I, we do a Sunday show called Casually Comics Sunday Chat, where we're supposed to be casual, but really we get very kind of loud, kind of obnoxious. We've got a lot of opinions about comics, and we are not afraid to talk about it.
Nice. Yeah. And you know, Jimmy and I always are catching it on the run while we're doing all our stuff. Yeah. Try to pop in. Usually I get about 40 minutes in here and there on it.
Sometimes I feel bad because I know that we get a little bit outlandish. So I know you can probably pop in at the wrong moment and be like, what did I pop into? Like, but we make it fun. We really want to make it accessible for everyone. We both believe that comics are 100% for everybody. Everybody can get into comic books, and we really want to make that's kind of our mission.
Right. And I think right now is a great time for comics. I think comics are more accessible now than they have been in years and years to the and a lot of that's got to do with the MCU and the DC movies and the independent movies. And a lot of that has to do with just the companies and the creators and the chances they're taking. And we're seeing like indies have never been stronger. The industry has never been healthier. We're just seeing so I don't know. All our wallets know it, right? Yeah. Every week when you're there trying to pick which comics you're going to get that week. Thankfully, this last week was light, but there's been some big dips.
It wasn't light for me. I still picked up about, I think between single issues and variants and trades, I picked up 38 books.
Wow, that's a good haul.
That's a nice chunk. Yep, been there.
Now, how many of those were variant covers, or were they all just separate books?
I think there were 3. I think I picked up a variant for House of Slaughter, the foily one. I think that I also picked up anytime Scotty Young does a variant cover, and then Peach Momoko. Anytime they do variant covers, I'm picking them up. So I think I did about 4 variant covers this week.
Nice.
Yeah, my wife loves Scotty Young.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start out with something because I want to learn more about you. We've crossed paths a few times. You've been on the show as a guest in our seat, guest host. But what's your first comic memory?
This is kind of tough. in middle school, I think my first delving into comics, like I knew what comics were. I had watched this Spider-Man movies, and I think that was like seeing them on the big screen. I think that I maybe when I was younger had some like Archie comics and things like that, but then really getting into them when I was in middle school, I read a book called Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, and then also read oh man, there was another book by Neil Gaiman that I had read, and I fell in love with that like fantasy aspect, and then ended up reading Sandman, the Sandman by Neil Gaiman, which is hands down my like absolute favorite book, and then just kind of went from there, especially a lot of the Vertigo titles, reading Why the Last Man and Fables. Those were the books that I really started getting into, and read like some Batman, read some other DC, read some Marvel books, but really it was indies for me from the start. Mostly that like gothic horror, fantasy, sci-fi. Those were always those were the genres that I liked in fiction, and then it just went right over into comic books when I started reading them. So Sandman is like the book that I tell people I'm like, first book, the one that I love so much.
Now, you mentioned Why the Last Man, a Brian K. Vaughan book.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love Saga and I love Paper Girls, and I cannot wait. I mean, were you excited to hear that Saga's coming back in January?
Yes, it's been 3 years.
And what a cliffhanger it was.
It really was, and I really hope, whenever it got announced 3 years ago, Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples had a baby, so they're like, let's go ahead and take a year off. We are halfway through this. We're going to work on the next half, and we were told a year, and I think all of us were like waiting, like, okay, it's been a year. Where's Saga? And then it was just like Saga Watch after that, right? And each issue, each like arc seems to leave on a cliffhanger, so this was a pretty big one. I really hope that over these last 3 years, everyone's had a chance to catch up if you haven't already, or please at least read volume 1, because I really think that the 55th issue of Saga that comes out in January 2022 is going to be one of the biggest releases ever.
Oh, and it was, I don't know, like that last issue, it was years ago, but it still breaks my heart to think back on it, because I don't want to spoil anything. It's just wow. Yeah. And I was late to the bus on Saga because I heard about it late, and then I picked up the first trade. I got to see what it's about. And then it was like reading it and heading immediately back out to buy the next one. And then all of a sudden it was just a constant Amazon. All right, let's get it to the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So seriously, if people haven't gotten a chance to read it, like finish the show, walk calmly, drive calmly to your comic book store if it's still open, and go get Saga.
How do you feel about the Sandman show coming?
Sandman's once again, Sandman is like the book for me, that this has to be done so right. So the same way that Dune is one of my favorite books, and I think that this iteration of Dune that just came out is fantastic, and I think that just from what I've seen from the trailer of Sandman, I think that I'm going to be very, very happy with the way that the show is going. It looks like perfect, like a shot for shot of like the first couple of pages, the first trailer that we're getting of Sandman.
Yeah, it looks good.
Excited. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we already know that you like Sandman, but I want to know, because you were bringing it up earlier too, how you and Mars got together for Casually Comic Chat.
Yeah, so I used to do a show with my friend Dan over on Comic Chop News, and like we would do a weekly show, and we would also invite creators on. We got a chance to interview Rodney Barnes, who did Philadelphia, and Mars, who is from Philly, joined us, and so her and I like became friends. And then there was a week when I was like, I'm going to do a show on my channel. I'm going to go live. Like, I've got a Sunday off. Let me go ahead and just see what she's doing. And I'm like, hey, Mars, do you want to go live with me? And it was like, no. And then it was like, well, I know you really like Batwoman. Let's do a show about Batwoman. So we did a whole show, like an hour and a half, talking about Batwoman and this modern iteration of her and how much we love that character. And then it was like, okay, another Sunday. Hey, Mars, do you want to like hop on and just like hang out with me and chat comics? And no. And then like finally, I think after the third time, she finally said yes. And then like a couple Sundays we had been doing it, and then it was like maybe 3 weeks into doing it, I'm like, Mars, do you want to go steady with me doing this show? Like, and it has been a wild, fun ride ever since. She is seriously the better half of the show. She is so much fun. She's got so much knowledge. She brings so much passion and energy to this. Like, seriously, everyone needs to check out Mars, that comic girl, because she is incredible. I absolutely love her.
I know. Well, I gotta see. Maybe you could help me coerce her to be on the show sometime as our guest.
Yeah, please. She's great. You won't regret it.
Nice. Now, I want to know what your favorite age of comics is. Are you a Bronze Age kid? Or are you a modern adult? Or
I'm definitely going to say the one that's the most nostalgic for me is 100% going to be this beginning of Vertigo. So in the late 80s, early 90s, like we get a lot of those titles that I mentioned. We got things like Sandman, and we also got things like Saga of the Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, and we also get Watchmen. So I think that one holds, like, I think of it as like the Karen Berger years of Vertigo, that early Vertigo. I think that is going to be just that magical time, especially because even though, especially with Vertigo, they were taking a lot of things from DC because it's a DC like subsidiary. So it's using a lot of DC characters in the background, in the foreground, but we're getting these new independent titles, these new stories that don't have 20, 30 years of backstory to read through. And I think that they're just wonderful original ideas. Sometimes they get darker and grittier. Sometimes they get lighter and more fantastical. So that, I don't know, maybe like decade, that like late, maybe like, I don't know, 80, 86 to 96 of Vertigo is chef's kiss. I love it.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think today too, in today's climate where we all have attention deficit disorder with how busy all our lives are,
Yeah.
like the shorter form storytelling, I think is really working well for people when you don't have to invest in 80 years of comic history to read a character. And I think that's where a lot of the indie appeal is coming in now too. You're invested for 5, 6 issues, maybe 12, or if it's an ongoing, maybe 30, 40, but not forever.
Exactly. And I think that that's making sure that comic books are accessible for everyone, like just bringing more people in. Those independent stories are, you can pick up, like you said, like that one trade, get into it. Even if you're getting late into Saga, you're getting into comic books.
Oh, there we go. Mr. Gettler, Chef Kiss, loving the interview so far. Very nice. So we talked about your old love of comics. What are you reading today that is connecting with you and that you love?
A lot, because like I said, I picked up 30-something issues today, so it's just a lot. I think, yeah, I like it all. But one of my favorite writers is Ram V. He's doing this current run of Swamp Thing, which is about to end. I think issue 10 comes out next week, and I'm really excited for that. One of my favorite books this year, I'm just going to call it my favorite book this year, was The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Hands down favorite book. So I'm really liking, of course, a lot of those titles. Some of my other favorite ones I really like, Not All Robots, written by Mark Russell. Yeah.
Mark Russell's a solid writer.
Underrated, I think.
I think so as well, along with Kelly Thompson.
Yeah.
So who are your favorite writers and creators at the moment then? Like, you already said Ron V, you already said Mark Russell. Like, whose books will you pick up just because they're on it?
I will almost always pick up, like I just said, Rodney Barnes, and I think that's just like from like talking with him and getting this really cool, hey Scott, a really cool perspective from him. Really appreciate his work. I've really been enjoying Vita Ayala. They have been doing, they're actually on the new Nubia Wonder Woman book that I've really been enjoying. I will pick up anything by, when it comes to art, I'm a really big fan of, oh my goodness, I was going to say David Mack, but David Mack is doing more covers than like They are a fantastic artist. I also really like Zach Thompson, who does some work with them. Like Lonely Receiver was another really good book from this last year, and I Breathed a Body. I think a lot of these titles are skewing horror. So I think that's kind of the genre that's been getting me this year.
I'm getting trolled by Comic Journey. All great titles, but the real question is, do you love Conan? Because I'm mostly a Conan Red Sonja.
Yeah. I like Red Sonja. I feel like I haven't read enough Red Sonja. I'm most familiar with the Gail Simone run, and the Amy Chu run of Red Sonja, but not too much else.
Yeah, because that one, the Amy Chu one went for 25 issues. Mm-hmm. But you read the 2 runs that I think are the least Red Sonja.
I think that's definitely what everyone says, is that those are like some more least loved. But I love Gail Simone. So
she's hit or miss for me, but what I did love of hers, and I'm curious if you liked it, I thought she was dynamite, just spectacular on Domino and then Hot Shots. I love that too in the follow-up. Those are so good, those series. Mm-hmm. Just entertaining issue to issue.
Yeah, and especially these characters that I think that she does really, really well on these characters like Secret Six. I think that those like really fun team ups are really what she does well.
Yeah. Oh, that book, it blew, because I had read the Red Sonja and I was like, ugh. And then I picked that up and I was like, ooh. But she also, I loved her Conan and Wonder Woman crossover was really good too.
Oh, I don't think I've read that.
That was a 6-issue mini series, and that was a lot of fun. I know it seems from your background when we look, and you got so much, that there's not much you haven't read out there.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a lot.
I don't know if reading's a problem, but
how many books a week are you reading on average?
I try to read all the books that I pick up. Last week I read about, I think it was 35, because I had about 42 or 43 books that I picked up. So I read a little over 30, and then this week it'll probably be another 30 again. I try to also read maybe 2 to 3 trades if I get to them, but I try to prioritize the single issues and then get to the trades. I will preface this with I work from home right now, and so I don't have like a commute, and then I can just like easily flip open a book, and I also don't have kids.
There you go.
Not having kids is a big save on reading time.
Mm-hmm.
If I was reading 30 books, I would have a hard time keeping the stories all straight. Like, yeah.
It's tough, especially right now with a lot of the Batman titles. And
I gave up trying to keep them straight.
I'm not reading a lot of Batman necessarily, but even the DC continuity, I know it's kind of like screwed up right now, but even reading Nightwing and Catwoman and I mean Swamp Thing, those are the titles that remain a little bit closer. But then if I try to get into the main Batman storyline, or if I try to get into oh my goodness, like Harley Quinn was in Catwoman book this week, and so like I really like the new Harley Quinn.
Really?
I do. I think it's fun.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yep.
I love all the Harley Quinn books up until this one, and I find myself like at the first point of my life looking to drop it. I mean, at least the only great saving grace has been that the new animated series book has come out, and that's been fun. But this has just been like, I don't know if it's the art or the writing, which is harder for me to slog through.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that there's still a lot of other comics. So if you don't like one, there's another 1,000 to choose from.
Right.
Now, see, I want to ask you if you agree in this, because I have an opinion about the main characters, right? Mm-hmm. So you got your Spider-Mans, you got your Batmans, your Supermans, your Captain America. But what I think, and we were talking earlier about how it's a great time for the industry and how it's booming and there's so much talent, something for everyone. But I think they end up chasing readers away when there's 8 different titles for Batman or 2, 3 coming out every week. And it makes the people, or Spider-Man, because he's in a lot, it makes the people who really love those characters, it makes it unaffordable for them to collect them at some point. And I think it ends up, and it gets too many storylines, and I think it ends up chasing away readership. Well, I don't know. What's your opinion?
Yes and no. I wish that the companies were a little bit clearer and more intentional with the way that they maybe advertise them. So for instance, I'm a really big fan of X-Men, and I like a lot of the X-Men titles that have been coming out, especially this like Hickman era post House of X, Powers of X. But I think that for the average reader who's getting into it, it's very unclear which title that you should be doing, not necessarily that you have to. But when it comes to X-Men, like you had X-Force, X-Factor, Excalibur, Wolverine, Hellions, all of these titles.
Marauders.
And like I said, for
Fallen
Marauders. So like for the average reader, do they even know? And for some of these events, like the Ten of Swords event, you had to be picking up one of each in order to get the whole storyline. So I think that they needed to do a little bit better marketing other than just like a page in the back that says what order you need to read them in. So I know that it's kind of some people like it in the industry, some people don't, but I really do wish that they wouldn't be afraid to just have things not in continuity. Like just if you redo an issue number 1, just redo it and don't make it linked to anything else that's going on. Just make it a one singular title and that's it.
Right, and that's not too bad or too much to ask of a reader at that point.
Yeah.
Batman would be a lot more fun to read probably if there was only one Batman title.
Batman, my favorite Batman titles are the ones where Batman's not really in it. Same thing with the Joker. I like the Joker when he's not there.
That's what I was just saying about Detective Comics before in the New 52, and glad to see that they're going that way with Detective Comics now. Once Batman leaves Gotham, is that it's going to be more about the rest of everybody else and not him and his let me get in the way and brood and bitch and complain.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Now another question I like to ask. Obviously, you're a collector. We can see everything around you. But is your partner a collector as well, or are you just alone in your collecting journey? Or is your partner more like, you got to clean this mess up?
Oh, 100%. My partner is like, you need to clean this mess up. And they're super supportive. They go with me to the comic book shop and kind of like look the other way when the total is being rung up, and they know. And they're very supportive.
I'm averting my eyes, oh Lord.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because there was a convention about a month or so ago, Rose City Comic Con, and they're like, well, what are you looking for? And I'm like, well, if I find House of Secrets 92, then that's the book that I'm looking for. Like, my budget for the convention is this, but then if I find House of Secrets 92, my budget immediately doubles. And they're like, okay. And so then we found the book for a little bit more than I thought I was going to spend on it. And they're like, you're going to buy it, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And they're like, cool. Do it.
So was that
and
your personal grail too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got it handy right there? Show us. Let's see it. And got it. Show it off.
I do. It cost more than my rent, but it was really worth it to me to get it. Even though, it's a 6.0 and I would have loved to have higher than that, but I'm really glad that I purchased that.
That's beautiful.
But you wanted to eat too, right?
Yeah, I do. And so I got this, and then I literally got like one of those like 20 packs of ramen and I'm like, I'm committed to ramen to have this. So I eat ramen every day for lunch.
Ramen is delicious.
It really is. No complaints. I'm eating it's good.
Eating like a college kid.
I got shrimp, I got chicken, I got pork. I'm done. I've got variety.
Yeah, I couldn't live in a place that had noodle bars all over the place. That's the only place I would be.
Yeah.
Mm. So nice. And congratulations on the Grail, by the way. That's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
Now, what's your opinion on? Because I've never really seen you talk about signed books or graded books. What's your opinion on those two aspects of collecting?
Go for it. If it's something I have less than 5 graded books. There's really not too many that I have. And so I think that it's just, if you want it, go for it. If I think that there are kind of like these two sides of the industry, right? So there's the people like me who mainly focus on buying and reading and then talking about them. And there is another like maybe side of the industry that's all speculation and let's get graded books and let's buy them and flip them. Like I feel like those are like two different sides of the industry. I'm going to be more of a reader than I am necessarily collecting and getting them graded. If you want to get them graded and get them signed, that's beautiful. Go for it.
See, I'm the sucker in the middle where I will have either a reprint or another copy of any book that I get graded. That way I can read it as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
I think
it's
Gary
tough.
was trying to, Gary was just trying to set you up for conflict or something with me.
Right?
No,
we obviously
not at
know
all.
what Rob does.
I know it's a hot topic. I mean, some people
I do it wrong though.
You do it wrong. What do you mean?
I don't speculate and I don't flip them. So
no, he just keeps them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm with you on that. I don't flip mine either. Anything that I slab is I slab it because it's something I love, or if it's just I slab it just because of the cover, then that's like going out for me, like going out and buying a piece of art because I just love the art and the cover that much, and now I have it preserved and I know nothing will happen to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I just went digital. It takes up way less space.
Yeah, but it doesn't smell the same.
No, it doesn't smell the same. But yeah, it takes up way less space.
There's nothing like the mold spores that come off a page from 1944.
Rob and I talk about all the time. Are you a fan of the smell too, Jen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Newsprint,
for sure.
Newsprint for the win. If they could make that a cologne.
Oh. Yeah. You know, comic book stores, they do have their very own like fragrance, their very own. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's like that like dusty like old comic book smell. Sometimes you smell the people that have been in there.
Sweaty nerds.
Yeah. As someone, you know, I used to work at a comic book shop back down in Florida, and the owner would have these like fantastic smelling moisture, like they're supposed to take moisture from the air. And to me, like that is what a comic book shop should smell like. So if you ever go to Fort Myers, Florida, and you go to Hero Trader, step in just to smell it, because that is what a comic book store should smell like.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm digging through the back issues and just the books are so old, some of them, it'll like set my nose off. I'll start sneezing. I'll have to walk away for a minute to go back. And
when I cut open a mail call and it has some Golden Age goodies in there, and as soon as that you break the seal of that box and it just comes pouring out.
Now,
I was being facetious, Jerry.
Which I want to know too, because we all know Sandman's your favorite character, but what's your favorite mainstream character from the big two? Someone that you will read this character, even if it's kind of a subpar story, you'll still stick with him because you just love the character.
Swamp Thing. 100%. I mean, is Swamp Thing technically a main character? I think he is.
I think so.
I'll definitely read. The only thing is that I haven't been reading Justice League Dark. That's also being written by Rom V. Like I feel like that's been harder to catch because I'm not reading the main title. And I'm actually going back and like I've read the Alan Moore run, which was like pretty lengthy, but I'm going back and trying to catch up on like I'm reading the Nancy Collins Swamp Thing right now, and that's been fun in a weird way. So yeah.
Did you get that giant tome of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore that came out?
No, I have all of that's one thing that I haven't gotten. The only like big like thick boy that I have is Saga. That's the only, I have the first volume. I find that those are hard to read for me because they're hard to just like pick up and like sit on my lap. And then having that like ADHD, I can't sit there and read the whole thing, of course. So the smaller trades are just a little bit easier for me. And if I've already spent the money on the single issues, the variant covers, the trades, multiple times, then I'm usually not going to pick up the omnibus. That's where the money stops.
Well, that's all right. I mean, you got the one big grail.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you got a huge collection. You said you started collecting when you were in high school. Was there a time that you ever took a break in collecting?
Yeah. Probably when I was first reading in high school, I wasn't collecting single issues. Like there'd be single issues that there was a really shitty comic book store back where I used to live in Florida, and couldn't really get too much there. It was literally in a storage unit. Like it was one of those like outside storage units, and that's where it was. So it wasn't very good. And I didn't collect single issues at the time. And then, so I was only collecting trades. I didn't really start getting into collecting single issues until about it was probably about 2008, maybe 2010, 2012 is when it really got serious. And that's when Saga came out. And that's when I was going to the comic book store every single Wednesday, picking up so those image titles. You know, it's funny that you asked earlier, what's this time in comic books that you really love? And I answered that it was like this decade of Vertigo.
Right.
My other one that's a good second contender is like the last decade of Image comic books, like this decade from like 2010 to maybe 2020. I think that's another like decade that I really, really love. Thank you, Justin. You're the best.
And Justin has been a guest on before as well.
Yeah. Such a good guy. Seriously.
Yes.
I love the energy he brings.
So which from your point of view, which is more important, the writer or the characters?
The writer, because you can have a bad writer on a character and it won't be good. So I definitely think that characters can be written differently. Like, you know, if a character isn't necessarily like my cup of tea, or if I don't necessarily see myself in that character, that's all right, because I've more than likely got like several decades of backstory that I can go back to and reread. So I do think that you can read a character even though it's written by new writers. But I think that as long as the writer, you know, does it justice, then I'll read it.
So you'll find yourself being sometimes nomadic, leaving one character because following a writer, or versus as opposed to staying on. Okay, cool, interesting.
Yeah,
That's one of the things that's always interesting is there's different people have that different approach to it.
Yeah, I'll definitely, you know, because I read so many titles, I'm not like stuck. Like there are some people who will be like, I will buy every Flash comic book and I am only going to read Flash. Like that's the one book that I read, or Green Lantern. That's going to be the one character that I read. But I really like a lot of like diverse stories, and I really like just reading a wide range of stories. So I could never stick to just one character, I don't think, unless it was Swamp Thing. Like I'll read anything Swamp Thing.
Have you read
I agree with you too about the modern ones. I'm really loving the horror comics now, and I think like Scout Comics really started getting me back into horror comics again. When they started being really good again, it started with me with Scout. Like it eats what feeds it.
Yep, a girl walks home alone at night.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
agreed.
Plug a publisher that you don't think people are paying enough attention to in any publisher that you think needs more eyes on.
I know you said one, but I'm going to bring up multiple. Sorry.
Oh, that's right. Go ahead. Let's hear you.
I think that Aftershock is really great. I think that they've got a lot of really good titles. Maniac of New York has been a fun one. The Autumnal is another good title by them. They've been doing some really good stuff with horror. I also think that Mad Cave has been doing really good things. I really liked Stargazer this past year, and Terminal Punks was another really fun story that Mad Cave Studios did, as well as Dryfoot was another story by Mad Cave that I really liked. And I also think, you know, I also really like Vault comic books. I think that they've been doing some good stuff. So I think that if you haven't checked out books by Aftershock, Mad Cave, and Vault, definitely check them out.
Yeah, I just finished reading, I think, one from Vault that was pretty good. I'm reading Bermuda right now, which I'm really enjoying. That's a fun one.
That's like one that I'm not picking up.
It's just a fun 4-issue mini. See, I'm a sucker for anything Bermuda Triangle. Like I like you. I like horror, but I also like the sci-fi. And Bermuda Triangle has always been that great mix of that for me. So whenever there's any, like Spy Island was great. I don't know if you read Spy Island.
Yeah.
Oh, so much fun.
Do you like horror movies and stuff too? Are you a big horror movie fan as well?
Yes and no. I feel like I'm not caught up on a lot of modern horror. I find myself going back to some classics that I loved. Like when I was growing up, things like Chucky and Candyman are like some of my two favorite. But I feel like I'm not as caught up on some of the more like modern horror that's come out maybe in the last 5 years. But that's on me. So,
have you seen the new Chucky series?
I have not watched it, but I really want to. And I think that when growing up, I saw Jennifer Tilly, and it was an awakening for me because she was one of the most beautiful people I had ever laid eyes on, and totally had a crush on Jennifer Tilly from Bride of Chucky, for sure.
I think everyone at some point in their life has had a crush on Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's one of those 80s icons. She's one of those 80s icons that started back then too.
Yeah.
Great poker player too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Really good poker player. Yeah, she's been in a few World Series tournaments.
Oh, so here you go. Brian had a question for me. LCS, yeah. What do you think of your nomination for the CBC Award? And tell everyone what you were nominated for.
For People's Choice. And it feels a little bit surreal. It feels, I think a lot of times, I don't know if you're familiar with like what imposter syndrome means. Like, I feel like even though I can talk a lot about comic books and I read a lot of comic books, I feel like someone's going to find out that I'm a fraud at any point. Like someone's going to find out like I'm an imposter. And so I like constantly think about that. So especially being nominated against some incredible people, there's a part of me that doesn't feel like deserving of that. Like, to be very honest, I think that there are some giants in the community that just 100% deserve all the awards. And I'm just like, I'm over here talking about like, Mars and I will talk about what creators we think like the smell of their own farts. Like that's the comic book journalism side we're on. So.
Now, we've asked you about creators you like. Is there a creator you think out there that's overrated right now? I mean, we just saw the face, so there's obviously something popped into your head.
There's 3 that I can name off the top of my head, and I'm going to get people so riled up. So you can come and fight me if you want.
No, it's your opinion. Okay.
I really don't like Rick Remender. I really also do not care for Brian Azzarello. So like those are some some writers that I'm just like, anytime I see that they come out, so I'm just like, I really don't like them. There's some like especially Rick Remender. Like I remember reading Black Science and I'm like, oh, I like this. And then I read it again and I'm like, I hate this. So I don't necessarily want to talk about like everything that I don't like, but those are some creators where I'm just like, yeah. I won't go too much more into it.
Well, just because everyone has the creators that everyone else likes that they don't connect with, you know?
Yeah, I just don't connect. I think that's it. I think that the characters that they create, sometimes I'm like, I don't get it. Give me a giant monster from the swamp, from the green, and I connect with that character. But give me a guy who, like, I don't know, cheats on his wife and has a dad issue. I'm just like, I don't get it, man.
Uh-oh, here we go. Comic Journey with he does not like Peach Momoko or Scotty Young.
You know,
I love Strange Academy, though, by Scotty Young.
I agree. I'm really digging that. And The Me You Love in the Dark is another really good story that I've been liking.
I haven't read that one yet. I saw it, and I'm like, I'll get it in trade eventually.
It's a miniseries. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the miniseries, I sometimes, because even when I buy the miniseries, so let's get into your reading habits. So do you, like, I read my miniseries after I get the whole miniseries, or do you read them? Because that's how I do it. Or do you read them as they come in?
I read them as they come in. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll go back and like I'll buy the trade once it's done and reread it again, or but usually I'll read it by single issues and then by trade again.
Well, trades are nice too, especially when they have the extras in. Like they'll show all the variant covers. They'll print all those in the back, or they'll have a creator interview in the back. I always like that when I get that in a trade.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, have you ever met one of your creators that you idolize and just been able to talk to them and shake hands?
Yeah. I mean, it's it's been a hot minute since like going to conventions, and I've only been into one the last 2 years. But the last creator that I met that just absolutely blew me away with how nice they were was David F. Walker from Bitterroot, and got a chance to meet him and kind of had a fangirl moment. And he said something very nice to me. And so that was really, really cool. Also getting the chance to interview Rodney Barnes, even though that wasn't like meeting and like shaking of hands, just being able to talk to him about his work is one of those like highlights that I'm really proud of.
Nice. I think most of us felt that way when we actually talked to Jason Douglas for our first show on here. He was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
He's a cool dude.
And sometimes you make a connection with these creators too. Like you saw me look away a second. Jason Douglas was just messaging me on Instagram, and I was like, because he that first show, and you've been a host. It's really nice when you sit down and you just all get along like a group of
Yeah.
old friends. It's I think what we all call it like what's that movie with the 4 kids, right?
Stand By Me.
Yeah, the Stand By Me moment, where you're all like just gelling like that.
Yeah. And that's
Oh, go ahead.
That's so cool to be able to do with a creator when you're like, I really love this medium. I appreciate what you've done for the medium, and for them to just be like a down to earth person. I think that makes it even better. It's because sometimes that doesn't always happen with creators. Sometimes creators are just rude. Like if you have one bad experience for a creator, it'll be like, I'm never buying anything from them again.
And I've seen that with a few people, and I think even Comics King, he had a bad experience too. We're not gonna call out who he had a bad experience with. You can go check out his channel and find out for yourself. But
yeah, people have bad days, right? People
Right.
have bad days.
I've always considered it, and depending upon what it is they say, for the most part, I can separate whether or not I get along with them from whether or not I like what they do artistically one way or another.
Mhm.
However, there is lines that people can cross where you just go, I'm sorry, you're just too up that I can't support that.
Yeah.
Now, what comic series do you think is hitting its stride right now and doing great, and which one do you think needs a course change?
I think Nightwing is doing so. Let me rephrase this. I think that Tom Taylor is doing some incredible things with Nightwing right now. I would have never been picking up a Nightwing book if it wasn't for Tom Taylor. Same thing with Superman. I would have never been picking up Superman, Son of Kal-El, if it wasn't for Tom Taylor. But I also think that I hate this Fear State event that's going on, and I think Fear State is ruining Nightwing. Like it's just making some really awkward moments. So that's one in particular that I think that is just like blowing me out of the water. There's really not one that I can think of that I'm just like, I don't like. So if I really, really don't like something, then I'm usually just going to drop it. Sometimes I hate read things, but sometimes I'll keep going.
That's the perfect lead-in, Gary, to my usual question.
Yep, I was trying to get you there, Rob. Go ahead.
Thank you. You can lead a horse to water, and sometimes he'll actually drink. Speaking of which, I'll drink to that. So the big two come to you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
They say, we recognize we have problems. Which one book are you have complete creative control over? Are you going to take over and single-handedly try to fix?
It obviously couldn't be one title, but if I could do it with it, I would say if it would be Marvel, I would love to be doing what Jonathan Hickman is doing with X-Men. Like, I would love to be head of 10 right now. I don't know how I would do that. I don't necessarily have like a plan, but give me a few moments. However, I will tell you right now, if I could do that with DC, it would be Batman. I would give Batman a rest. I would make it so that he doesn't appear in a comic book for the next at least year. I don't want to see Batman in a comic book for a whole year. I don't want to see the Joker in a comic book for an entire year. If I was like head of DC, I would also make it that if we do see Batman in the next 2 years, we can't have the Batman origin story. I swear, if I see that Batman origin scene in the alleyway and the ripping of the pearl necklace, like, even some writers that are okay writers put that in there, and I'm like, we've seen it 100 times, we don't need to see that again. That would be like my official decree on Batman, would be like, no Batman for a year and no pearl necklace for 3.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to ask this question for Jason, because this is one of Jason's favorite movies. What did you think of the Snyder Cut?
I did not like it. Here's the thing, is that the first one wasn't great anyways, and maybe if we had seen the 4-hour one before we saw the shorter one, that might be different. It was just way too long to get through. Maybe it would have been better as a series, but I did not like the Snyder Cut 4 hours. And one of the biggest reasons also why is because at the end, spoiler alert, we get to see Granny Goodness. And I really wanted to see Granny Goodness. I also really wanted to see a New Gods movie. And the fact that because of the Snyder Cut, we didn't get to see Ava DuVernay do a New Gods movie, and we missed out on Granny Goodness and Big Barda on the big screen, tears my heart apart. So I didn't like the Snyder Cut just because I thought it was boring. I couldn't watch it. There were too many moments that were too fast and then too slow, so I think it suffered from script. I think it suffered from pacing, and it didn't work for me. I get it if it worked for other people, but it didn't work for me. So,
yeah, some people like Conan, right? I mean,
I knew he'd have to take it there. Don't worry, Jason.
I had to go through this earlier with them, and I was the one person for the most part who didn't care as much for the Snyder Cut as everyone else. So yeah. I'm with you.
If
that counts for anything.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Now,
have you read DC versus Vampires?
Not yet. I just picked up my books yesterday, and I worked all day today, so I'm off. I'm off on Saturday, so I plan on just like taking Saturday to try to read. Maybe tomorrow night. Tomorrow during lunch, I'm going to try to read. Yeah.
Good book.
Yeah. Sometimes those can go hit or miss.
Good first issue, anyway. We'll see where it goes.
Now, okay. I wanted to go back to that, though, and visit this question with you, because I have a strong feeling about events, right? Like, Marvel had Empire and the X of Swords. I really enjoyed Empire. A lot of people didn't. Well, I didn't really enjoy King in Black. But the thing with the events, the event books themselves are good, but I think they start to ruin the regular titles when they force the tie-ins. Like, I was loving Savage Avengers. The 3 tie-ins they made of that, it just took it off course. They got the story right back on track after. But I think that throws a lot of readers, and I think that hurts your base more than it helps it sometimes.
I think so too, because I think that especially if you're not giving your readers a clear-cut way to get into it, it's doing a disservice for it. And I also think that if you're telling your reader like I'll go ahead and pick up the 30 books, like I'll do the dirty work for you and do that, but then if you're not making it so regular readers can also, or maybe like casual readers, like people who this is going to be the first comic book that they pick up, if you're not making it easy for them, then you're probably not making it easier for the long-term readers either.
Right. And every time there's an event, you get all these new number ones. Like, they started the Black Cat 2 different times, and that series is so good. And then when you're going for back issues is, they were so close to each other. Is this from this series or this series? And makes it a whole garbled mess.
Yeah, I think that's I love, like I said, I love X-Men, but I think that's what X-Men is suffering from right now. I enjoyed 10 of Swords, but then we also got the Hellfire Gala, which was a little bit confusing, and then we've got Inferno and Trial of Magneto going on, and it's just a lot. And I think that I really want more people to get into X-Men, but it's really tough right now.
And I think they're doing that to the Star Wars books now too, with War of the Bounty Hunters.
War of the Bounty Hunters, yeah.
That's probably wrapping up just in time for them to launch Crimson Dawn.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Star Wars, because I'm not a very big Star Wars fan. Like, if I'm gonna go one or the other, it's gonna be Star Trek all the way. But I have been enjoying the Star Wars comic. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Just kidding.
But I do really love Dr. Aphra a lot, and I've been the High Republic. I know nothing about Star Wars when it comes to all of that, but I really love High Republic.
It's a good line. It was even if you don't like that era of the for the people, I can understand how people who are longtime Star Wars fans aren't into it, but I definitely understand. It's a new period of new stuff. It's very easy, like you said, for new people to get into and to appreciate and get into there. And Dr. Aphra, 100% agree. I just hopefully they'll get past all this stuff and get back to her and her adventures and everything else, because it is one of the greatest characters they've come up with, and great set of stories they've done with her since her launch.
Yeah, totally agree.
Now, I wanted to add out the Jen's thing earlier when she said she wouldn't want to see Batman for a couple of years. And Jason, this is going to surprise you because I'm no Batman fan. But what I don't want to see in comics for a year to 2 years is any fucking symbiotes. I'm done with symbiotes. I don't want to see a fucking symbiote anywhere.
Can we just or I'll settle for just seeing one symbiote and not have 12 others or 13 others or 700 others running around.
Right. It's just such overkill on symbiotes. I can't. I see a symbiote in a book and I'm immediately, nope, I'm good. I don't need it.
It's funny because I'm not like a big like Venom fan or anything like that, but Ram V is actually going to be co-writing Venom with Al Ewing, is another writer that I really enjoy, and I'm actually very excited for that. So I will be Venom has been added to my pull list. Funny enough,
Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk run has been amazing. So that's a hard one. I hate Venom, and with Al Ewing and Ram V, that's a hard one to not want to read.
Yeah. Without. Yeah, I mean, those two creators are amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did
any of you check out the trailers today? Because I want to get Jen's opinion. Did anyone see the teaser for She-Hulk? Because I've been waiting for this for a while. No? Ooh. I think...
No, I seen the teaser for Buzz.
That was good, too.
I didn't see that either.
But I'm excited for She-Hulk. Have you been keeping up with any of the TV series, like Titans or any of the Marvel ones or anything like that?
Keeping up with Marvel. DC series have been kind of disappointing for me. I think the Titans gets some good feedback, but it really lost me. I was hoping to go into Batwoman, and because Batwoman's one of my favorite characters, and I think that one was so disappointing. I didn't love it at all. So I'm just I'm going to stay away from most of the DC
Wasn't that
shows.
CW though? Batwoman.
It still had good potential and was very exciting when they announced it, but then it just kind of get tripped over itself early on, and then with the whole change of characters and everything else, and they've been trying to adapt to the stories and become reliant on bringing in characters that people know from the Batman stories instead of her own, it's just made it unwatchable.
And I, especially when it came to Batwoman, the first two issues or two episodes that I watched, it seemed pretty close to the new Batwoman run, which I'm very tuned into. But what I love about Marvel is that they kind of put all of the Marvel stories in a blender, blend it up, and then just give it to you, and so you get all these bits and pieces, so it's still new and original, and you don't have to be well, they didn't do that right. So I feel that's why I've been enjoying the Marvel series a little bit more.
They have managed to escape the usual backlash of that's not how it was in the comic, or that's not how it was to the same degree. I mean, there still is a little bit of it, but somehow they've managed to escape that, whereas every other franchise gets annihilated by that. I mean, I'm hearing it really strongly from my wife, who's into the Wheel of Time world, and the trailers just dropped on that, and oh my God, did the just like everything else, the fandoms are the same everywhere. They're rioting in the streets because something doesn't match or align the way they think it should.
My partner is so in tune with Wheel of Time, and they are so excited for that show. But I think that they also have that perspective of they don't want it to be like the book, and they're very excited for the changes, especially because it's more focused on the Aes Sedai than the other characters. So they're really excited about that.
And it probably adds a layer of freshness to it too, because when you're so familiar with the material.
Yeah.
Because if you want those stories, they're still there in print.
Yeah. But if they had done that to me with Dune, I would have rioted.
I still have to watch this new Dune. I haven't seen it yet. I work so much. I think it's probably going to be like 3 hours, right?
It's 2 hours, 46 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I just need time to sit down for 3 straight hours and watch it.
So it's just a little shorter than Justice League.
Gary, if you're like me, it's about an 8-hour slog because you fall asleep at different points throughout it, and then you got to wake back up and go back and rewatch stuff until you eventually get all the pieces together.
Yeah, no, getting old is hard.
and a lazy boy is brutal on the old man's body, yes.
Oh, goodness. Oh, that's great. So,
yeah, there you go. There's a good question from Matt.
I want to give you let's see, Matt. Oh, Jennifer has a lot of knowledge. Wait.
I guess I misread it as a question. Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Thank you, Matt.
There you
I
go.
appreciate
well,
that.
How do you let's feed it into a question then. So you do have a vast amount of knowledge. Have you just gotten this via, I know there's different ways people get it. Sometimes you get it just through exposure as you go along, or do you find yourself seeking out and gathering information and having that inquisitive mind to want to learn, who is this guy? Let me go, what else did he do? And go down the rabbit holes?
100%. It's funny because the other day someone said something to me. I said earlier I'm not like a big fan of Venom, and then someone said something to me about Venom, and I'm like, I really need to go on this rabbit hole. And so I went on this whole rabbit hole on and did go down the symbiote rabbit hole and spent an hour and I literally text Mars because I think that it was 4:00 in the morning my time, and I was just awake, and it's 7 something her time, and I'm just like, Mars, why is it 4 in the morning and I'm going down a Wikipedia rabbit hole for Venom? And she's like, Jennifer, stop, go to bed. And I also think that people like her, she has such a vast knowledge of comic books, and with especially DC, where I'm lacking. She has such this great DC knowledge that I really appreciate. And if you don't mind, I'm going to grab something really quick, so I want to show it off. So give me just
Absolutely.
20 seconds.
Quick, Gary, entertain everyone.
Dance, Gary, dance.
I was just going to say that, Jason. Oh, goodness. Now, I'm curious what she's going to bring. It's funny how fast these hours go by. Oh, go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I was just trying to get this straightened back. But
Gary was serenading us, so please don't let him continue.
Sorry. Oh, I was gonna let him continue.
No.
But one of the things that I recently did is there's a person who lives here in Portland named Douglas Wolk, and they actually read all 27,000 issues of Marvel comic books, and they lived to write about it. This book came out a couple weeks ago, and I got to go to the press release here at Books with Pictures in Portland, and man, I have barely started just cracking into this book, and it's already so good. So I'd highly recommend, if you're one of those people like me that just wants to tune in and not just learn about comic books, but maybe learn about history or learn about comic books that you haven't actually read yet. I'd highly recommend All of the Marvels by Douglas Wolk. Little
Very nice.
plug for that. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah. Really cool stuff.
Keep reading 30-some books a day, and you'll be able to write your own book pretty soon.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I can barely read 7 in a week. But
now I want to give you time to plug because we've hit our hour, and I want to know, give you that chance. Talk about what you want to plug, what's coming up on your channel, and plug some other people you think that other people haven't been exposed to, and they may get some good entertainment from.
Yeah, 100%. Some of the people that I love the most in the community, of course, my co-host Mars. Like when I say that she is like the better half of like our show, 100%, you should be following that comic girl. She is absolutely fantastic. Drops such insane knowledge. I don't know if Sheena is still here in the chat, but she's on Instagram as She the Geek, and she's an absolutely fantastic person. TM Nerdy Travis, who I think is just comic book community hype person. Really appreciate them. Let me see. I also Justin, who was here earlier. No Good Comics. I think that he does really good stuff. I also really love John's Comics with Kids. His kids are my favorite YouTubers. Like I love hearing their comments on books. So just off the top of my head, I think that those are some great folks. Also, FTO Nerd Talks, D, he's an absolutely incredible person. The folks that I freaking love comics, they are also an amazing group of people, and I'll be hanging out with them on Friday. Over on Will the Beast Fitness channel, I'm not a fitness person whatsoever, but Will is such a great, cool kid, and I'm so fortunate to get to do a show with him and Bearded Comic Book Bro and Fire Guy Ryan. I do a show with them on Friday nights, and that's a lot of fun. And then, of course, the Sunday show that I do with Mars. And over on Comic Chop News, we do a blend of things. Like we do a monthly graphic novel book club. We also have been rereading Dune, and we're about to read Children of Dune. And Scott Hazelwood, if he's still in the chat, he reads that with us. And we've been talking about that and just talked about the movie. And then who am I forgetting? This week on Sunday, my show on my channel, Casually Comics with Mars. And then Fridays, Comic Talk Live. Saturday, I'll be hanging out with I Freaking Love Comics and Comic Chop News. So. And then, of course, I'm here. You guys.
And we should also mention that you've cracked that 1,000 subs mark for a little while now.
Yes. Once again, I'm feeling that like I can't even believe I'm here. I feel like I ended up accidentally sitting at the kids' table or sitting at the adult table for like Thanksgiving or like Christmas. And I'm just like, I don't know. They're the people in this community are absolutely so incredible. And I really think that thanks to initiatives like the Grow Together community, I think that's so important because I don't think that there's anyone in this community that sees each other as competition. Like there's nothing but love in this community. So really, really, really so grateful to have this incredible folks in this community here.
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, that is great. We're going to do our round of goodbyes. Now, Jen, you're a guest, so you get to say the last goodbye when we get there.
Well, right? I do want to say thank you so much. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you don't have to thank us. Oh, but I do want to ask you, because I meant to ask it because I know you're a big Dune person, and I almost forgot to ask the question. What do you think of the Dune series that are out now in comics?
So there's a couple. So there's Dune House Atreides, which is the like kind of prequel to what's going on. There is also this Dune graphic novel that came out that is supposed to be it feels like it's very much in tune with the current movie, but there's also this Kickstarter that came out recently, and that's also it's on Kickstarter, and it's going to be a little bit more in tune with the movie than the other Dune graphic novel.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, but I really like Dune House Atreides a lot. It's giving us some like back insight into things that were only like kind of talked about in the books. So for nerds like me that just want like to live in the world, it's really cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch the movie. I gotta watch it. I've been loving the trailers. I've
watched it probably close to 20 times now, twice in theater and 2 or 3 times a day on HBO Max since it came out last week.
And that's why she's behind on reading now, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's on HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll have to watch that now. I didn't know that.
It's so good. It's so good. I have a Dune tattoo. I've got the Litany of Fear and a Chris knife and a Bene Gesserit. I love Dune so much.
Nice. Hey, we all got our thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what's so cool. Something you can get totally buried in the fandom of.
Yeah.
Yep. Gary B's got a chainmail bikini tattoo.
Ooh.
I have no tattoos. I am not a tattoo person.
What do you have against Jen there, huh, Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary.
Yeah.
Tattoos?
Yeah, he's not into tattoos.
Why are you anti-Jen?
My wife has tattoos. I just don't have tattoos because I'm already ugly enough as it is. Nothing that's gonna go on me
so
is gonna
tattooed
make
people
me
are
look any
ugly
better
now.
or cooler.
You just
Yeah.
put people on and oh my god.
Way to go, Gary.
Oh.
Thanks. Thanks. You know, I will say that
get ink.
yeah, and you know, I think that tattoos do give a lot of like self-confidence. Like I used to like always hide my arms because like I just didn't like my arms, and then I got tattoos and I'm like, I paid a lot of good money, I'm showing this shit off. And like same like I have a big thigh tattoo, and I would have never worn shorts even in like hot Florida. I'm like, I'm not wearing shorts. And now that I have a tattoo, I'm like, show that off. So you know, get a tattoo, show it off.
You know, Jason and Rob got matching tattoos. They both have the Homer Simpson donut around their belly buttons.
Aw.
Interlock.
Anyway, we'll end it on that. Jason, what have you got coming up, buddy?
This coming Tuesday, we got the I Told You So episode of Sidekicks.comics.
Rob?
Saturday on Slab Hub on my channel, we have Sector 2815 coming on. He'll be showing off some comics from his collection there in his slabs. For those of you who like to encase a book in plastic and not read them, because reading is hard, or just love to display them. Anyway, so Sector 2815 will be on. Monday will be a regular mail call day. There's a mix of stuff this time, and including some more out of this world comics. And then, of course, Tuesday on my channel will be Sidekicks.comics. We'll be talking about the ramifications and whatnots of the CBCS price increases. And since we dedicated an entire show to the CGC one, we will do it on the CBCS one as well.
Now, Jen, you had something to say about that. Go ahead and state your piece.
About CBCS?
Yeah, I saw you jump, so.
I don't know. It's funny how everyone jumped from, like, everyone was mad at CGC, and now everyone ran to CBCS, and they're doing the same thing. So it's like everyone's going to go back to CGC. So
we'll have to talk. We have to come by and see and what we have to talk about it. And
I'll be in the chat just fighting with everyone.
We think it's a good thing or a bad thing or anything else.
Yeah.
So, or is it even the same?
And as for me, Jen, I just like to thank you for coming on the show. First, I had a blast when you were a guest host, which I hope you'll do again in the future at some point. And but one, it was great actually getting to know Jen the person a little bit better and a little bit more. Thank you for opening up and sharing with us with all our questions tonight, and really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate being on, and I love any chance to talk comic books, like seriously, especially with a really cool group of guys. So thank you. I really appreciate that a lot.
Where exactly?
In the comments, okay?
There you go, in the comments.
Well played.
Fair copy.
You're welcome.
Perfect.
You're welcome.
All right. Now, Jen, I don't know if you remember, but I always sing us out with an awkward ending. So we're going to do that. And Rob started us out with all of us doing it together, one after another. So we're going to make you sing
in
tonight.
a round, you mean?
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who's going to start it tonight, Rob?
You're doing it in a round. Am I starting this off? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, start us off tonight. Go ahead.
Singing.
Ready? Start the awkward ending.
Awkward ending. Awkward ending. Awkward ending.